I got an email from Dina this week. Says, I have a question for you. How have your aspirations changed and remained over time, your practice and your many spiritual practices as you've developed? As you developed, how have your aspirations changed and how have they remained over time? So Dina asked me a lot of questions. Some I just don't answer. Some I try to answer shorthand, short form. Some I say keep thinking about it. Some I give her long explanations. But sometimes I say that's not a question. Some questions should not be answered. But she never gives up. Dina keeps rolling in with the questions. But I responded to this one. That's a good question, Dina. It's a good question to ask ourselves. That was not quick, a trick, Dina. It's a good question to ask ourselves. So I thought I would like to kind of address it because, how mind change doesn't really help you that much. You need to know how yours change, how your aspirations change over time, how they remain the same, because that's the difference in whether one will advance on this path or not. It's not a standstill path. It is a path, and a path leads to something. And there are certain times in our life when we are engaged in life that we have to exercise certain remedies, certain staves, and other times that we rejoice in the fruits of our effort. And it all depends on where we are, what our goal is, and our actions. So today I wanted to talk about Bardos, or the Bardo. Could somebody tell me what their understanding of the Bardo is? Anybody? Passage?
It's the space in between.
And then take that mic. Let her. She couldn't hear you. So go ahead, Dina, and then you.
It's the spaces in between.
Okay, spaces in between.
Passage from the ending of something to the beginning of something new.
Passage from between the ending of something and the beginning of something new.
So I just think more specifically after we die and before rebirth.
Okay.
The space and all of the, it's not activities, but that's what comes to mind. All of the levels of what happens between.
But you have to hold it.
Between death and rebirth.
Okay. So you're speaking specifically of when we drop off this body consciousness and this physical body separate.
Right.
Okay. So that is what's typically called the Bardo stage, but the thing is, it doesn't matter how much, well, it does matter because that's the whole point of my discussion. When you reach that stage, that's not the learning stage. That's the stage where you can use something if you've learned something on this side. So it's a little bit, for most people, too late to do anything in that stage. You know, you're just going to be blown by the winds of karma at that point, unless you've had many, 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 many prior lifetimes of cultivation that may afford you a rescue. You know, so since I don't recall past lives, they say that we've had them, and I don't doubt it. I'm just saying I can't recall it. So, a matter of fact, if I did, I'd be walking in some of that recall. I may be walking in some of that recall, but I don't have the present experience of connecting those dots. But I do have some experiences here and now that I can rely upon. So there are different levels of reliance, first of all. We can rely on what somebody said that feels right. We can rely on what they said because we respect them, but it doesn't feel good. We can, there's different levels of reliance. But my best reliance is to know something for myself directly, to directly apprehend it. That's my best reliance. When the Buddha was dying, he said something a little shocking to his disciples. I don't think they've gotten over it yet. Because throughout his life, while he was here and he was teaching and instructing them, pointing the way, that's what you could say. He was pointing the way. And as he was leaving, he said, remember the things that I have taught you and continue to persevere in that until you know it for yourself. He said, you can hold on to what I taught you until it becomes your own realization. But then just as he was dying, he said, be a lamp unto your own feet and a light unto your own path. He said, take refuge in yourself. He said, become a refuge unto yourself. So at the beginning of his teaching, he was opening their awareness, pointing them in a direction, guiding with his words and leading with his example. And I think that, like Pannavati, he was a man of few words. But if you came into his presence, you'd catch something. And so there were those that were really close to him. And there were those who were a little further from him. There were some that could apprehend what he was talking about, and others just had confidence that that was so. And at some point in time, whether in this life or in another life, they would also come to know it as their own. And so he grouped these disciples of his into different categories. There's a difference between a lay person and a householder. And there's a difference between a lay person and a monastic. But he kind of grouped them according to the ranking of their aspiration. He didn't say that this is wrong or this is bad. He just lumped some things that we consider primary and spiritual into the category of social convention. For instance, marriage. He didn't consider marriage a spiritual thing, but a social convention. Most people did not marry for love. Women were chattel, we property, and alliances were struck between families based on the survival of bloodlines, for wealth gaining, for power and control over territories. Marriage came in around that kind of thing, not around love. I mean, this is a very new convention. I mean, jury's still out on whether it even works or not. But he didn't consider it a spiritual thing. So we have to not take offense when certain things are spoken of in certain ways. We have to know context. We have to know history. We have to understand when the arising of something came into being. For instance, when I think it was Constantine established that marriage was made in heaven, and what God had joined together, let no man put asunder. And then we just took it up like it came right out the mouth of God, But, and we're not saying that it's not a sacred thing, sacred in the sense of vow, a vow between two people or 3 or 4 or 10 people, because men could have as many wives as they could afford, But the part of the operative word is could afford, and the other part is that they could care for. If I thought that it was only possible to have one child that you could love 100%, I would only had one. But I have 3 and I love all 3 100%. That's what I'm telling you. And so he said that he kept silent on the issue of marriage. Monogamy is, or was, I'm getting an education, was predominant in this country. They call it serial monogamy now because there's so much divorce and remarriage. But in a lot of countries, it's not like that. Most of those, 99% of those, allow men, and it's a social convention, to have multiple wives. One country that I know of, I'm sure there's more than one. I know of one in Africa, but one in Tibet, the wife has multiple husbands. Don't ask me why. I'm sorry. Oh, that. I'm sorry. y'all know I'm joking, right? I'm just kind of making light of a conversation because we have difficulty when views are expressed and we don't get a chance to express ours. Well, I disagree with that. So I know a lot of people do, but don't get too hung up too hung up on it because it's really going someplace else. I didn't even mean for it to go this far. And so he didn't say much about it except to implement a precept concerning it, a vow, you know. And he said, basically, though, we're going to stay out of people's marriages. And he did. So you can hardly find anything. There are a few things, mostly when people needed a little help in understanding or how, you know, to be with others in their life, he gave some. But mostly he left that up to you because he didn't consider this little blip of time that we're here, you know. Be together, walk alone like a Tuscan was focused on this. That was what he came to teach, and he stayed in his, you know, he stayed in his lane. And so times change, cultures change. I was going to say they, you know, get better and better, but I'm not sure that's true. And we find the Dharma as it has spread around the world being examined through the lens of things. As a Christian, and this gets to your question, Dina, I took up as one of my final acts, my next to final act before I stepped out, sort of outside of the container, I took up intercessory prayer. And I understood it as a petition that I would make on behalf of others for whatever they needed in their life. And I usually examined that and decided what they needed, you know, according to my understanding. When I think back about it now, I should have kept silent about a lot of things because part of it was mixed with a judgment of what I thought was right or what I thought they needed. But for the most part, it was a training. Inter means between, and session means to cede something, to give up something. So it's that space between owning and having and giving up, relinquishing the rights to something. Stay with me, because we're going to go somewhere today. It's between giving up rights, the space in which we can drop things, we can relinquish things, we surrender things, we give up things. And that's how I understood intercession, through the lens of me petitioning a deity, petitioning God, petitioning holy beings, petitioning on behalf of others. Now, this is a good aspiration if we don't take it too far, if we don't take it into what our how we want their situations resolved. It's good, but it's an intermediate state, not the same as Bardo, but it's traveling the distance from here, where I'm concerned about me and my life, to here, where we are in the branches of bodhicitta that start with self and others are equal. When there's a conflict of interest between myself and others, I get rid of my own hatred, antipathy, greed, and arrogance, and disparaging mentality. I must not emphasize benefiting myself. I should treat myself and others equally. So let's say that if I make a mistake, what I want for me is mercy. What I want for you is maybe comeuppance, or what you deserve, or depending on how I think and feel about whatever I think you have done, whether you have aggrieved me or whether you have aggrieved somebody I like. And that's mostly like where we stay. But he talks about practicing a cultivation that requires us to think of self and others as equal. If I want time to fix it, I want you to have time to fix it. If I want to not be judged because you haven't walked in my shoes, then I want to learn how to not judge you because I'm not wearing your shoes. I'm not walking in your shoes. Now, in the Bible, it said that God said, I desire mercy, not sacrifice. So what that was saying to me is, no matter what I offer to petition the gods, whatever I offer of myself, as good as it may be, those sacrifices, he said a better gift would be to offer mercy. And so I became at the top end of my journey there, because it's the only definition I had for intercession. I became a prayer warrior. And I started with 2 hours a day in intercession. Then it went to 4 hours a day in intercession. And then I spent 8 hours a day in intercession. So the church is closed up except for, Tuesday night choir rehearsal, Wednesday night prayer meeting, and Sunday. But every day around the clock, ultimately, our church had somebody who gave 8 hours. So 3 of us in the beginning was, however many. We had some missing slots, but ultimately it ended up being some of us who would spend 8-hour shifts. And we would just walk around the sanctuary praying. We started with names for people who wanted to be on the prayer list. The intercession in the beginning was mostly around sickness and health. Can't go wrong with that. But after a while, people began to make specific prayer petitions for things going on in their life. in their family. Now, you had to be careful with that because we were prayer warriors for sure, but were we perfect ones? Not at all. So, in the beginning, there was some mess with that, because somebody would confidentially talk to somebody who would confidentially talk to somebody who would confidentially talk to somebody. And we had names. So I would lift up Patricia and I would call out her specific issue or what she asked for prayer for. I would try to cover her with myself. That was our job, to get so close with who we were praying for that we were inseparable, as if I was praying for me. This is my urgent need. This is me. This is me right here. And when I really got into it, that I didn't see that this was Patricia's issue, but that Patricia was me. Self and others are equal, bodhicitta. Something would shift in the whole entreating of a petition. It would shift because after a while, it was as if it was my situation. And that's what we might call exchange between self and others, bodhicitta. I want to bear the suffering of all living beings. I give to others all of my happiness and good luck so that they may leave suffering and obtain happiness. Now, why I'm bringing this up is to help us to be able to make a transition, how we grow, and how we have to start with some premise, some idea, some understanding. But as we enter into it, action-wise, it begins to shift from something out here to something in here. And this is a process, and it takes time, and you can't skip this step. But in time, one could become caught up. And it wasn't just that one, but you could feel the sorrow of everyone, anyone who was in the same situation. And a lot of that time, that was back in my singing days. So a lot of that time I spent just walking around the sanctuary singing. Like somewhere, there's someone living in a state of confusion. Lord, I don't know where, but I'm sending you there. Please touch somebody right now. I know you can, and I know you will. So there was a progression from just the one to seeing it as a human condition. I didn't have any teaching at that time that framed it in this way, but still had the training and the willingness that led to experience, however you categorize it, and however we categorize it within our own, spiritual path, but it was the same. And it came through the action of surrendering to a particular ideal until I entered into that ideal action-wise. And it took a lot of time. But to touch the experience of that union was the point of transformation. It is what transformed me. Wasn't thinking about it. It wasn't reading the scriptures, but it was actually the walking out and and feeling and experiencing the travail, the enormity of the suffering rather than the judgment of the person, to come alive to that, for it to come alive to us, catapulted us into a different relationship. Both with people and with ourselves. And after some time, it began to shift even further. And I'm going to tell you to give up 8 hours a day to just walk around an empty sanctuary. After a while, in the beginning, I was good for a couple of hours, but then it's like, okay, I done prayed for everybody. Everything's good, right? I mean, I run out of stuff to pray for. So now I start all over again, because I ran out of names. I ran out of situations I could think of. And then something happened. And what happened were other people who I didn't know started in that expanded state that I was in, started coming into my view. I can't explain what into my view really is like, but it's something like when you have a dream and something and a story unfolds. And in a dream, most of us know when we are dreaming, there's some kind of fine space that we're in. So I can't reach out and touch the characters in my dream, because even if I tried, my hand would go right through them, because they're just of a more fine material, So you're dreaming, and that's different than being awake, where everything's really pretty solid, But having had a dream-like experience, I could tell that this was like a different kind, with the opening to something, to somewhere, to someone, some connection with one. And I didn't have to know them personally in this concrete, finite way. But as they started coming, I knew them, the name, could see the situation. And I go into a riff for them. in time, that changed. And it wasn't just people, but it was places. And it wasn't just my words, my English words that I know. But there was an unction that rose out of me that went beyond what my mind, the sixth consciousness, could understand. I didn't anybody explain to me about consciousness and levels and all of that, you know. Wasn't even interested in that. I mean, just wasn't anything that I could know there. But I began to know something through these temporary experiences that they were real. And that there was a capacity within me to be touched by them and to somehow touch their situation. And I just went with that. Sometimes I would just be, you know, like broken up, just a cool and over what you might call an imaginary person. But I knew that I was changing myself for them. Exchange between self and others, bodhicitta. It's a necessary step. I'm not teaching exchange. I'm only bearing witness today to exchange from my own experience without any teaching in this way. To bring something more than a mental understanding, to open us up to more than just a mental. This is not an intellectual thing. It is the coming forth of action, spontaneous action. But that exchange between self and others cannot arise without us considering self and others are equal, or first cultivating self and others are equal, bodhicitta. And that cannot arise as long as the sense of self is greater than our sense of others. So it's like building a house. The strongest part of that structure is the foundation. Because the house is only going to be as sturdy as the foundation. And building up the structural framework. Yes, the drywall helps hold it all together. But it's the foundation and the structural framework that take the time. It's not beautiful. No. But when we put that time in, whatever we put on top of that has a good chance of survival. And not only survival, we can make it beautiful. But we have to have something to make beautiful. We just want the beauty. We put in our windows, our floor to ceiling windows, and have all our beautiful paint colors and all of that. But the question is, how deep is the foundation and how sturdy is the structure? I used to sell steel frame homes and build them. One of my husbands and I had a company, and we do a lot of them in Florida, and Texas, places where they have hurricanes, because the wind could huff and puff and it wouldn't blow the house down like it did with wood studding and so forth. And the other thing about steel frame is that you could have expansive, rooms or open spaces in the house because of the steel framing. And it gave me an idea of how important it is to have, I was going to say the patience, but I will say to have the care to build a sturdy foundation and to have steel-like infrastructure. But after that part was done, the house could go really quick. Once that was done, so maybe we could replace the word patience, which I never liked as a Christian. It's because patience comes with tribulation. Tribulation teaches you patience. Oh, to hell with that. I took all of them but patience, but no way to get around it. But I'm thinking now of the care, that when we want to really be able to offer the care, what it takes to be competent. My words are changing. In the past, I would have said to be qualified, because I'm like just where the rubber meets the road. But now I'm thinking not qualified, but competent. Make it even simpler than that, to be able. To be able. It's funny because all of my Dharma teachers always used, their words were too sappy for me. Always nice, But I think that nicety is like, it's an adaptive behavior that keeps you safe in your society. She's so nice. It keeps you safe in society. And that's not the same thing, one thing about most nice people is that they're focused on what others think about them. So they try really hard to be nice, and it makes you a prisoner. Never be free. But compassion is linked to a kind of a kindness. A kind of kindness where I take you as my own self. That kind. I take you as a part of me, and I act for you as I would do for myself or act for myself. Acting in your best interest, then for me, is acting in my own best interest. That's a thing in the mind that gets, it's like a worm that eats its way into your mind. You can't get it out. It's a step beyond thinking about you. I'm thinking about you. When I say I'm thinking about you, I don't mean I'm just thinking about you. I'm thinking about you as if you are me. And that's different. So this co-arising thought of me, not me and you, not you apart from me, but like two sides of a coin, there's just this one thought. That when I hear something, as I'm hearing it as if it affects me, and my mind goes to, how should I respond? How would I respond if it was me? I never think, well, they should just let me suffer until I see, what's the word of my ways? The error of my ways. I never think that about me. So I should never think that about someone else, even if I decide I can't help them. But I never think that. So some things will leave you. Some things you will lay down and abandon, not because you have to push them away, but because there will no longer be any room for it in your mind. And when it does come, because thoughts will come, they rise, abide for a while. And if you don't act on them, they will leave. So sometimes in the beginning, it's just letting them hang out. You're not ignoring them, and you're not ignoring them. You just recognize that they are there. But the corresponding action that they require, you can't take up that action. It's not suitable for you. So you just leave it. And the same way it came up, if you don't act too quickly for yay or nay, just leave it. And it will abide for a while, and then it will leave on its own. Later, you can come back and ponder the situation. And if energy arises with it again, you just leave it. and you leave it, it's like if you can't help, don't hurt. You just leave it until some action comes up for you where you can be helpful. And so we learn how to be helpful by just leaving whatever judgment we have. So I was mad with Reba this week. I said the next time I speak to Reba, she will be so glad to hear from me because I'm going to give her an egg like you won't believe. Ignore. And that's because Kadara, yeah, I'm sorry. Sometimes you are not like individual people to me. I- so sometimes I have difficulty with names. I know everybody here, but don't be offended because it's a very good thing. It's a good thing. It's moving beyond individuality. It's not like lumping everybody together either, but it's seeing the emptiness of the other behind, so, or at least that's our excuse as we get old. No, it's truly that. So I said, she'll be glad to hear from me the next time I speak to her. And it's because Kadara was sick. And so I heard that Kadara was in the kitchen fixing herself something to eat or something. And I sent an email to Kadara, but I CC'd everybody else in the house. I said, Kadara, tell me that you're not in the kitchen, coming down to fix your meals because no one is taking care of you. Tell me that's not the case. And Reba responded, well, frankly, that's offensive to me. Said, frankly, that question is offensive to me. No, she didn't say that question. Said, frankly, it's offensive to me that I would think that. I think you said that you would think that. So I said, frankly,
Since we're being frank.
it's right. But I didn't do it. I didn't respond. That was good for me. Frankly, it's offensive for you. I asked the question, and because I think my answer was good, I can stop crying now. That was my thinking or hearing that maybe she wasn't fully taken care of. And well, that was by way of confession. That didn't even have anything to do with what I'm talking about, but it does, though. I'm talking about the things that we have to pay attention to on this path, which is more than hearing a Dharma talk and agreeing with the Dharma talk and going away the same day after day after day. We have to spend each moment of the day looking at, I'm not saying judging. I didn't judge myself. I just looked, at our thoughts, our speech, and our action. I said, I asked a question. And she comes back and says to me, frankly, it's offensive. Yeah, you did. So between those words, I said, okay, now I don't have to say anything to her. Ever. um, so it won't be my loss. And the mind starts going all the way over here in left field about something. That's just how the mind, that the egoic mind works. And those are the things that we have to pay attention to. Those are also the things that we have to peel back the Band-Aid and let some air get to that sucker. You got to peel back those Band-Aids where we're hiding, like our sores because they fester under there. They need air. They need sunshine. And if we don't, then we, in spite of all of our effort, hiding behind something, we will. No, if you want to go to hell, just stretch out and go like a man. We go to heaven. Just play it, Joe. Just because the conversation is so serious. So, but I'm saying take accountability for your actions and recognize that each one of them is a karmic link. That's what I'm saying to you. This is serious. We can be doing all the right things, or most of the right things, but just one little thing, it's so important, and it can set us back so far because this is a kind of, it's a struggle with our mentality, our mental attitude, and some of us maybe don't feel like we have to be nice, but still, the mode of thinking is not nice. And we need to see it and recognize it. She could have said, oh no, we've been taking good care of it. I said, oh, wonderful. She said, frankly, it's offensive. And that caused me to vector. I'll say that caused me to vector because I picked up on something directed towards me. I'm calling because I'm concerned about somebody else, and it flipped over to me just like that. But we have to look for it, and we have to know it, and we have to want to know it. That's my point. We have to want to see it. I want to see it. Well, I guess y'all will remember this. I thought this was going to be hard talk, but I've been trying to pepper it, season it, not pepper it. So we have to know the difference between right effort and struggle. Right effort is not just doing the right thing when we know to do it, but it's recognizing when we're not right. And it doesn't require flagellation, it just requires recognizing and correcting. But our ego won't even let us recognize and correct. So we're either stubborn and that's our story and I'm sticking to it and cast the blame, or we try to be the perfect age
on the Enneagram.
Mm. Yeah, but see, that's the whole thing about the Enneagram. I just need to know my number.
You're an 8.
But you're not walking in my shoes, and that's the difficulty with those kinds of things, because they reveal to you, they tell you about the other person. And so then now I can, sure, it gives me some way of working with them, but mostly it gives me my justification for what I think about them. And although maybe it wasn't designed for that, but that's how, in our unenlightened states, how we use it. Yeah. And so something that could be a help if one was in the field ends up being something that helps us concretize even more and more, our separation. Spiritually, it can help us. It helps us to know something more. So you have to ask yourself this question when the mind is perturbed. Why am I struggling right now? Not what number is she, but why am I struggling? Why am I struggling right now? So I asked myself, why am I struggling? And my answer was, I asked the question. I asked it nicely. Sometimes I don't, but that time I did. I asked it nicely. Yeah.
I've heard the question right, though. You said, don't tell me you're in the kitchen doing stuff yourself. That's
I said, no, what I said is,
what I hear.
please tell me
You're not.
that you're not
Yeah.
in the kitchen.
We're gonna have to be
Right.
That's what I said.
Stop.
There's an assumption there
That you're not being taken care of.
No, there was an assumption. There was word given to me, and I went to verify it. So I asked for clarification. I just asked. I wasn't in any kind of mood except for just care and concern for her being sick and having to fix her own food. That was it.
So instead of saying, are you being taken care of, you said, are you not being taken care of?
I said, no, please tell me that you are not in the
So
kitchen
that was
having to take care of
an
yourself.
assumption or a judgment. And then you wanted to.
No.
You were wrong. You were hoping that that would be wrong.
I was hoping that the word I got was incorrect.
Right.
Really, I was, because if not, I was going over and to take care of. Says, tell me this isn't true. And some of this is really knowing somebody. You don't know me by now. You don't know me by now. Some don't know me like you don't know me, you know. But some should know me by now because they want to know me, because they've lived with me. They've had plenty of time with me. You haven't, but they have. And all of it that have taken was a no. So actually, what bothered me was not that. What was it really?
Where your mind went.
No. I'll tell you where it was for me. It was, I thought of teacher-student relationship and that she should speak more respectfully, especially when I didn't like rail in light into her. That was it. See, the question is, why am I suffering right now? Well, why is my mind perturbed right now? The whole reason was I felt that she should not speak to me that way. That was the whole thing. But see, you can't tell me the reason, and you can't tell me the reason. I have to know my own reason. And when I thought about it, that was my reason. Even when I disagree with my teachers, I'll say, I disagree. But I never use capital letters in, which she didn't. I don't think you did. Capital letters like you're shouting. I didn't know. I used to use caps all the time. Somebody said, when you do that, that means you're shouting. I said, really? So I didn't know. Okay. So if anybody gets a capital letters, but it's me. I had to know my reason. Not your assumption about me. I have to know my reason. And that was it. And the minute I saw it, I said, wrong view. And then I could understand that she really was offended to think that, for me to think that she wouldn't take care of Kadar. And, I know that Kadar is young, 26, and today's 26. We had to work harder in our day. Every generation, it gets easier and easier. And so it takes longer and longer for the maturity to set in because they don't have it as hard, And I see that dynamic in that household. Yes, Kadar, I do. That sometimes she's diminished because there's the thought that I can say that because it's been said, that older always knows more and better, and that's not really true. Or because she gets something and I don't get it, then it can't be right because she got it, otherwise I'd have it. I'd understand it. And these are little things that seep in. I'm talking now about how deeply we have to go what right effort requires. No more glossing over, but I'm talking about going deep now. But it can be so liberating if you're not afraid to look there. And if you keep looking, you'll start to see that we're really just a composite of thoughts that come and go, of tendencies, that are, memories, conditioning. You can't really find a permanent, abiding self there. You can't. It's just response to things that come up based on thoughts and memories and conditioning. And that is what the Buddha talks about as the false I. So the Buddha asks us, what action is needed? What action do we have to take to observe consciousness without analysis? Because right away we start analyzing and coming up with our reasons. That's because of this and it's because of that. But he just says, just look, sit with it. Don't even try to analyze it. And it'll become clear to you what the issue is. Sometimes I think we try to analyze so that we can make it with logic to be what we want it to be, because we don't want to deal with it for what it is. So we put all of our intellect into play, and our logic sticks to make it something over here, because we just don't want to deal with the simple plain truth of it, because that's hard for us to take. But if we have the courage to take it, we will transform. That's what I'm saying to you today. So now I have a different understanding of intercession than what I had as a Christian. Do I still make petition for people? Yes, I do. But I have touched something now between session, the giving up of rights. Because I have seen that the one who has rights is just a bundle of thoughts, memories, and conditioning. That's it. And it's in this space of intercession between the giving up of rights to a false notion of a self. Mhm. And it takes confronting, meaning facing. I'll use the word facing instead of confronting oneself at these moments for the change to occur. And when that change occurs into us, there is a leap into another field. And that field, it's not that it has more information than the field we're normally operating in. It's just that it has a kind of luminosity that we can see and penetrate more right where we are. And it takes that kind of reflection. It's not a judgment, but it's a reflection to allow the leap into the visual of that field. That means see more that's right here, never was anywhere else. So I didn't leave and go there, but it's a kind of shift or movement, and suddenly there is a brightness that you can see more what's in the room and all the moving pieces, and it's your own accomplishment. It belongs to you. It changes how you know yourself, it changes how you see yourself, and it also changes the external structure of things. And that's why one can have short vision and one can have long vision. One can have, what do you call this? Yes, blinders like myopic, and one can have a wide periphery. And it's all based on our own cultivation. So now when I read, when you read, when we read the Dharma of cultivation, that most of us didn't understand it. When practicing this cultivation, everyone should carry out. That's the action. The following: self and others are equal. Bodhicitta. When there is a conflict between myself and others, I will basically work on myself. I must not emphasize benefiting myself, but I should treat myself and others equally. I thought I was being nice. As a matter of fact, I thought it was being kind of cute. Tell me you're not in the kitchen, because because sort of it was a, if you're in the kitchen, should you be in the kitchen, but just didn't know me. So Kadar said, "Oh no, they're taking really good care of me. I shouldn't have come down." No, you shouldn't. I shouldn't have come down to the kitchen. That was her response. She did answer, but I got sidetracked. You see. Exchange between self and others, bodhicitta. I want to bear the suffering of all living beings. Benefit others before self, bodhicitta. When they're suffering, I want to extricate them from that suffering. When? Even before I get out of my suffering. When other beings are happy, I want others to be happier than I am. I said, okay. Then there's the dedicating merit, bodhicitta. I dedicate all of the merit and accomplishments from my cultivation in the hope that they will leave suffering and attain liberation. Dedication of merit. After every Dharma talk, we ask for offering of the dedication of merit. Dedication of merit for listening to the Dharma talk, or dedication of merit for the actual actions that we have undertaken. Maybe we're not getting the dedication of merit for the actions because we're not taking the actions. So when we are, it will come forward because it has its own properties. Dedicating merit, bodhicitta. Dedicating to all living beings all of the merit and accomplishments from my cultivation. Fearlessly protect the Dharma, bodhicitta. When any evil spirits or demons harm the Buddha Dharma, lead living beings to break the precepts, and harm living beings, resulting in the suffering of living beings, I will maintain right view, will not fear. The evil powers will step forward to protect the Buddha Dharma and the wisdom whereby living beings become liberated. And then effectively lead others to the correct practice, bodhicitta. Lead others to do the same. It says living beings are burdened with the power of karma that has accumulated since beginningless time. Because they are ignorant of this and have created all kinds of negative karma, there will be times when they will not repent or change their ways despite constructive exhortation. Says in such case, what? Do I have any power? I will use powerful rectifying Dharma methods to lead such people onto the path of true Dharma and beneficial and good conduct. So he has told me what is beneficial and good conduct. And if I'm acting outside of that, I need to rectify. And so part of that is why we have, within our monastic community, we have confession every, I think, what is it? It's supposed to be every fortnight or something. But in church, I learned don't let the sun set on your wrath. So we don't get together as a group and confess every fortnight, whatever that is. But the rule in our monastery is don't let the sun set. You know, so we try to take care of something immediately. And then the last one is renouncing myself to help others build good karma, bodhicitta. Renouncing myself to help others build good karma, bodhicitta. Those are the steps. You can see how important it is to how they build upon one another. That's what I want to say. So I have this new idea that entering into this Bardo is what the true intercession is. And it's a time when our ordinary mental activity stops. Like just being caught up in that space. It stops and there's a kind of peace that truly passes all understanding. You have to have that peace. You have to have touched that, have tasted that peace to know that it's, for me, it's worth every beat down. For me, it's worth giving up my ego, for me. The problem that we got out, and I'm through, the problem that we got ourselves into with mindfulness is making it a standalone product. It's not a standalone product. There's nowhere that mindfulness is mentioned in the sutras that is not connected to something. Mindful of what? So everybody's going around trying to be mindful. But it's mindful of what? And as we go further and further into it, you can access this space and it will change how you know yourself and how you see yourself. And that's where the work is done. And you will know it because it'll allow more and more entry into that space. It frees up something so that you can enter into that space. I can hold it and conceal it and be nice, or I can call it what it is and be done with it. It dissipates. It's like flipping on a light switch and seeing that the teddy bear in the rocking chair is just a teddy bear and not a monster. And after I've done that, I also have a chance to see what else is in them. And it has to do with nothing other than the integrity that comes in the moment with looking at one's own action in every situation. That's what it takes. And how do I know that I'm making progress? It's when I find the joy that comes in wanting to see. I want to see. No more, I used to sweep stuff into the corner because I didn't feel like going to get the dust pan. So I sweep the floor, just the area, not under the bed. I mean, nobody's gonna walk there. I just sweep in the main areas, and then I sweep it behind the door. So when my mother would open the door, she couldn't see it, but it was still there. This period of resting between any two periods of dissimilar activity, that's what we're after. There is a Bardo there. There is a gap. Looking for that space to recognize when this activity shifts to become this activity. It requires a flip. If we're willing to flip with it, we will make progress. So some things that you learn, they're not for now. They were in preparation. Something else is called for now. If we keep defaulting back to that, we won't grow. It doesn't even mean that we abandon that, but we hold that, but from this new place that we are in. So we continue to make progress. Otherwise, we remain stuck and stagnant, and we'll never reach our goal. At the end, remember, the Buddha said, be a lamp unto your own feet, a light unto your own path. So he took the emphasis from his teachings and his example and said, because actually, we are no different. This is just my own light, and you have it too. But this is what it takes. This action needed to observe, consciousness, like without analysis, just be natural. Vanity is corruption from the start. It's corruption from the start. The moment there is a bit of vanity, the moment there is a bit of vanity, corruption from the start, from the inner spaces. And that's all I need to uproot, my own vanity. I think that's it. When you touch these spaces, if you're not afraid to push the door and go in, it'll change what you see. It'll change how you see, and it will deliver its corresponding accomplishment to you. Somebody close for me. Sorry, I have a new thingy, so now I have to have the phone in the room. That was wonderful. It didn't ring. Sure. Yeah.
Okay. For health, food, for love, friends, for all
Things like medicine, water and everything we thank you, and food too.
Amen.
Front on.
That's right. Thank you so much for coming today.